After a couple hours of digging, I have found it. I have found Sonia Belmont. I can't believe this. They were right. They were right exactly where they said she'd be buried. I have so many questions, so many wonders, so many inquiries. I just, maybe if I get a little closer, I can get some answers.
If I told you fanboys once, I told you 1,000 times. Leave me.
Oh, man. Oh. That was some nightmare. Burger King's Nightmare Burger. Oh, never again. All right. Oh, what time is it? I've been asleep for 3 months? What? Like, how does that even happen? What do they put in that thing? Oh, man, I am way behind on reviews. I'm just gonna review the first game I find. Somebody up there really doesn't like me. Robocop is my favorite movie of all time, and for good reason. It's a science fiction marvel that melds the 80s action flick with dark comedy, great one-liners, and a dystopian future with social commentary that still rings true to this day. The Cliff Notes version is as follows. Detroit cop Alex Murphy dies at the hands of criminals, but he is brought back to life in the form of Robocop. The first movie is fantastic, and while the second movie has its quirks, I always enjoyed it for what it was, despite it not being able to hold up against the original. But the third movie, that was just a travesty for the series, and it really showcases how to not close out a trilogy of movies. Look at this scene. Like, are we seriously seeing this right now? How did it come to this? Don't even want to watch. How a third Robocop game was made, I have no idea, as the second game wasn't exactly known for being the best of the bunch. Robocop 3 was developed for a number of European computers as well as Nintendo and Sega consoles. There's plenty of people who have taken a USB spike to the jugular of Nintendo developed games, and rightfully so. But today, we've got the Genesis and the Sega Master System versions in our crosshairs. And dead or alive, it's coming with me. To be reviewed. Oh, okay, you get the point. So strap on your jetpacks and Gatling guns, cause this is Robocop 3 on the Sega Genesis. Oh, I don't actually have any Gatling guns or jetpacks. Published by acclaimed subsidiary Flying Edge and developed by Eden Entertainment in 1993, Robocop 3 kicks things off with an image of Murphy himself with the simple choice of options or starting the game. You can increase your lives and continues, and I strongly suggest doing so, because Robocop 3 is a brutally difficult game for all the wrong reasons. But does this difficulty completely ruin the experience? There's a total of 6 stages, though to be fair, some of these stages are extremely short, but there's a nice variety between them. Let's break each stage down. In stage 1, you're spending most of your time blowing away jacked clones of Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
You feel like a big man now, pig? Huh? Maybe you had a real job, you could afford to party like me, instead of trying to set a trap to meet your quota.
Depending on the gun you end up using, they generally take a few shots to kill. What you'll notice as you play through the stages is that there's virtually no way to avoid getting fired upon at points. Sure, you can duck and jump and manipulate your jumps while in midair, you know, things that Robocop probably can't actually do, but at times it seems like it's unavoidable to avoid certain attacks. There's some light platforming you'll need to perform to get to the end of the level, as well as taking on killer robots, construction equipment, and biker guys driving with their lady loves. Whoa, talk about blowing away innocent bystanders. Not exactly serving the public trust there, Murphy. The end of the first stage has Robo taking on Carl clones from opposite sides, but thankfully your guns have been upgraded by this point. As you move throughout the levels, there will be icons to pick up things like health with the letter E icon, and something that looks like a health pack that doesn't give you health. What? There are also bullet pickups for whichever gun you currently have equipped. Weapons can be easily changed with your third action button on the controller, depending on how you changed up your controls. This makes switching between weapons nice and easy, and allows the player to cycle between the standard gun, the three-way shot, the orange pulse ray, flamethrower, and rocket launcher. I primarily stuck with the pulse ray gun, as it has the quickest response and seemed to, oddly enough, typically do the most damage. Not every level offers every single one of these weapons, but the pickup will be the same in each level. No randomization here. There's a specific rhythm to enemies and bosses in this game. For example, the first level boss pretty much requires you to be more towards the left and keep firing at the right hand side. Heck, even the mini boss to stage 2, which involves triggering a short cutscene where the genius little kid from the movie pokes at an Ed 209 machine with a screwdriver, somehow turning it against the bad guys by doing so. But if you aren't continuously firing, regardless of what's incoming on the screen, you run the risk of having your life bar depleted very quickly. With all the armor that Robocop has on, you'd think he'd be a little tougher, but no. In this game, he's a total pushover. Robo's life bar drains insanely fast against the bad guys in this game. As soon as you even breathe wrong on an enemy, you're dead before you know it. This game requires strict memorization to learn which enemy is coming from where. While this doesn't take too long to master, the punishment for not being perfect is just too harsh. Look at this, I barely touched the robot here, and I'm dead. It's also worth noting that Robocop takes fall damage, so if you're looking for an easy way off of the platform in stage 2 as it descends, or if you decide to take an easier route in stage 4, you'll end up dying from the fall. Robocop actually controls about as well as you'd expect him to. He's not slippery like in the Ocean developed NES sequel, nor is he completely stiff like in the first NES game. He's got enough maneuverability to be believable to his character while remaining agile enough to enjoy playing the game. He can duck and shoot, and his firing has a specific rhythm to it that, with enough practice, one can get down pretty easily. He can aim forward, up, and at an angle, but not downwards, which is a shame because in level 4, you'll encounter perhaps your worst foe ever. Rats! I kid you not, these rats do brutal damage just by jumping at you. When moving across the disintegrating platforms, you'll be attacked by these rats that are near impossible to avoid, and trying to hit them with anything other than the flamethrower is extremely difficult due to their size. They tend to jump at an angle that is just below your firing range as well, making them even harder to hit. If you're lucky and you can get past the disintegrating platform part where the rats are attacking you, you can mostly dodge them. You're then left with barely any health and your guns are disabled, possibly by the rats? You'll face off against the Kanemitsu robot from the movie, who's fairly easy to defeat just by throwing random elbows while moving back and forth. Going back a bit, Stage 3 switches things up and makes Robocop take flight in his brand new jetpack. You'll have the opportunity to grab gun power-ups as well as health refills in this top-down shooter section, but it mostly feels like you're just trying to bide your time until the boss of the level arrives. There's a secondary shooter stage which makes up the 5th stage, and this is probably the hardest stage in the entire game. The jump button doubles as a bomb drop, and you'll need it because these green bunkers will ruthlessly attack you. Between the main enemies coming at you above and these attacks from down below, it's just a hailstorm of bullets and floating baddies careening towards Robocop. What makes matters worse is that the enemies on the lower planes are impossible to hit unless you manage to nail a direct hit with a bomb drop. Otherwise, surviving this stage, to me at least, felt like the end of the game. Taking a step back before we encounter the final stage, level 4 takes place in a church where Robocop has to find keys in order to open doorways. Climbing the stairs here feels completely unnatural, as Robocop doesn't start climbing from the bottom rung to the top. No, his ascension via staircase feels more like jumping on platforms, which makes more sense in a video game perspective, yet it still feels really jarring here. The visuals in this game don't exactly blow me away, but they're sufficient enough to say the least. Robocop looks like Robocop, there's a lot of repetitive bad guys, and the enemy selection is bland at best. For a licensed action game, we've certainly seen better, but it's honestly pretty serviceable. However, the music, composed by Matt Furness with sound drivers by Sean Hollingworth, are probably the best part of this game. From the Terminator-like bass thud of the first level, to the chuggy slap bass and warbling keys that haunt the boss theme, or even the flying level's soaring keyboard melodies. The music is fantastic here on the Genesis, well worth listening to outside of the gameplay experience. One thing worth noting is that this game is much less punishing than the Super NES version, and it also runs at a higher resolution, as well as providing more options like additional continues and lives. While the Super NES flying sections offer more scaling, I don't think I can handle much more movement in those levels. Things are crazy enough as it is. Though the colors are more dull on the Genesis, we do get Robocop's best attempt at gargling mouthwash during PCM samples playing. Once the 5th stage is defeated, the game ends with a final boss battle involving not one, but 2 Kanemitsu robots, just like at the end of the movie, and both are easily defeated using the exact same tactics as when you were fighting just one, keeping your distance and avoiding their sword slices while walking back and forth and attacking. The game ends, and we're left scratching our heads, wondering if we had fun.
There's a lot to like and dislike about Robocop 3 on the Sega Genesis. The music is outstanding, and the graphics and gameplay are so-so. Robocop handles pretty well for the most part, and it's an easy to control game, but honestly, this difficulty in this title really kills the experience for most people, despite the fact that it could be beaten in probably about 20 to 30 minutes. So, how does the Master System version compare?
The Sega Master System port of Robocop 3 was also developed by Eden Entertainment and published by Flying Edge in 1993. Mostly exclusive to PAL and Brazilian territories, Robocop 3 changes up some of the game while keeping other aspects the same. But just how different is this one? Well, to start off, you can change the lives to go up to 5, with continues again maxing out at 2. I feel like Robocop moves way faster in this game than the Genesis version. The D-pad is still used to aim up or up and to the right, but honestly the D-pad on the Master System is trash, so I ended up using the Genesis pad since it works if you plug it into the Master System. However, the most frustrating thing about this game, regardless of which controller you have plugged in, involves changing weapons. Changing weapons requires you to press down and press jump at the same time. This led to numerous failed or accidental weapon changes while playing.
Well, now we know why they gave us more lives in this one. You're going to be dying a heck of a lot more.
The stages are exactly the same, for the most part. There are some slight adjustments that are required in order to play through each, specifically when it comes to timing and avoiding enemies, like the robots on the elevator in Stage 2. But the ascending elevator in Stage 2, completely missing. Instead of having to take on enemies while the elevator rises, you just pop right up to the top. The shooting stages are more of an endurance run than anything. It's all about survival, as these stages are on a timer that's unknown to the player. I found these stages even harder to play through than the Genesis versions, mostly because the onslaught is seemingly never ending. However, avoiding the enemies is a bit easier, so if you don't engage, they generally won't either. The hardest part of this port is absolutely the ninja robots. They can supposedly only be hit from behind now, making them way harder, especially when there are 2 of them. Graphics and music in the Master System ports are still really on par with the Genesis version, with the Master System's limited palette in both audio and visual categories being competent at best. But I still have mad love for Matt Furness's soundtrack here in its 8-bit glory.
Honestly, if you've played the Sega Genesis version of this game, you've played the Sega Master System version. Really all depends on your preference between 8 and 16-bit graphics and music. Well, with that said, I would probably go with the Genesis version if I had to pick again. The Master System version's a little harder to track down, and it's definitely got a higher price tag because of that. Or you could just go play Robocop vs. Terminator on the Genesis, but that's for a whole nother time. And with that said, I think I'm gonna get out of here. I think I need a long, hard sit in a metal chair, and maybe eat some baby food. Gotta get this burger out of my system somehow. Well, that's all I got for you today, kids. And remember, stay out of trouble.